Are you tired of spending your time and money chasing strategy after strategy only to discover what worked 10, 5, or even 2 years ago is not working now? Things shift fast in the online space, and if you're not keeping up, you're getting left behind. It's time for something different. Welcome to the Marketing, Media, and Money Podcast, where every single episode will be jam-packed with proven, profitable strategies, behind-the-scenes secrets, and what's working now resources from industry experts and global influencers to help you scale your business, shorten your learning curve, and stand out in a crowded, noisy marketplace. And now, your host, award-winning marketing and media strategist, and international speaker, Patty Farmer.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to today's episode of the Marketing, Media, and Money Podcast. I'm your host, Patty Farmer, and I'm looking forward to sharing today's industry expert with you. And today, I'm really excited to be talking about a topic that I really feel is timely right now. We're going to be talking today about confidence. Confidence in all the things that we do. Confidence isn't just what we do when we're in front of a mirror, when we're on a stage. It's really all about the conversations we have and how it shows up every single day. So today we have the confidence coach with us. We're going to talk to Melinda Van Fleet. She is a multi-passionate success coach, speaker, writer, and business consultant who helps individuals as well as teams develop confidence to believe in themselves, to take action, and get results. Melinda believes many women are stuck and not living their best lives, and they can. Utilizing her over 25 years of experience building businesses and her passion for working with people, Melinda teaches women real-life tools they can use to improve their confidence, relationships, increase productivity, and approach each day with a sense of purpose. I have to tell you, I'm so excited to have you with me today, Melinda. Thank you so much for being here.
Awesome. Thank you for having me, Patty. This is fantastic. I really look forward to having our conversation. Thank you.
Me too. And I really love that. I saw recently that, you're the host of 2 podcasts yourself, and recently you had a name change on one of them, which I really love. I think it really embodies who you are and how you serve, and I just love it. So why don't you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, thank you. And thank you for your expertise, advice on the decision too. So I always appreciate your insight. I had started a podcast in October of 2019 called Crush It in Sales, because at the time I was really focused on my sales business and wanted to start a podcast in relation to that. Well, I've since segued into writing and speaking and coaching, and the title just didn't fit. And I've really discovered in my journey that confidence is applicable to everything you do. And when you start to listen to content or read someone's blog or article, you'll start to notice the word confidence is everywhere. And it just really permeates, your success. And really, I felt that the name change just really helped with opening up the door to having more conversations with more people, different guests, and also really authentically sharing more of my journey and my husband's journey with the audience, which really helps more people. And I love that.
I love that too, because I really think that a lot of times when people do think about confidence, right, they're really thinking about, how I show up. Well, that's true. But if we've learned anything in the past year, that how you show up is not just in person, right? It's not just the person on the stage. It's how we show up virtually. It's how we show up in our conversations, whether they're on the phone. It could be that how do you show up when you're going in to talk to your boss to ask for a raise? It could be when you're trying to close a client. It could be a lot of things. And it could be in having a conversation with your spouse or your, or your family member. So confidence, I think, is so important. And I'm really glad that we're talking about it today. But I'm glad that you talked about your husband there a little bit, because I have to tell you, I love that your journey so involved him too. Like, I know that my life and my journey, really, my husband has a very strong presence in it. And I think a lot of times there's a lot of couples out there. So whether their spouse or partner is in business with them or just supporting their business, right? Or is maybe their cheerleader, whatever role that is, a lot of times it's a very, very important role and it can affect that relationship. So I think it is really important. So could you share with us a little bit about your journey with Ryan and how it actually got you to where you are today?
Oh, yeah. And it continues to go. And that's actually what I think is really important for people to understand is you never get to this place of 100% perfection and every day just keep moving forward. So anyhow, in relation to your question, Ryan and I met, we got married very quickly. We hardly knew each other, but the one thing we knew was that we wanted to build a life somewhere it never ever snowed. So we actually manifested moving to the Keys. My husband was suffering from depression and we used to lay on the bed listening to the sound machine and I would just talk him through what it would be like to live somewhere where it never ever snowed and he could be a sport fishing captain. So fast forward, the universe had its way and we ended up losing our jobs at the same time in 2009. And we ended up moving to the Florida Keys. We didn't know anyone. We didn't have hardly any money. No jobs. We didn't have any jobs and we'd never even been here. So it was kind of a crazy move. So the premise of learning about confidence really comes from the start of our journey. Working through depression, working through mindset issues, understanding that, we're really hard workers and we could figure this out. And we rolled up our sleeves and you know what, we've now been here for 11 years, which is amazing because most people don't make it past 2 when they move to the Keys. So yeah, we're survivors and thrivers. We figured it out.
I love that. And what great examples, because I think that is really important. And I know that you had shared that story with me before, which really kind of led me to go to his website too and really see that. And I realized that it's not just about fishing, right? The story is not about fishing. You kind of just think it is, but the reality really is it isn't. And I think that is really exciting about having that vision and taking that vision of what you were doing separately and together deciding that this is what you wanted to do and you wanted to take action. And you had shared with me yesterday when we were talking about how you and Ryan decide to take action in your business, which I think is really good. And you had some tips there. Would you be willing to share some of those tips with us?
Yeah, sure. And I've really found that these tips that I originally put together when I was a buyer in the corporate world and just needed some structure around my own thought process and desires have, again, permeated, I seem to like that word today, into every aspect of our lives. So these are things that you can, once you get used to thinking of, can use for anything from business to relationships to whatnot. So number one is to recognize what you want to accomplish. What is your wish? What are your goals and dreams? And what's very fascinating about this, especially as I work with others, is a lot of people don't know. They really don't know what they want out of their life. So taking some time and getting off that hamster wheel and getting off that autopilot of really thinking about what you desire in your life is super important and step one. Step two is understanding your intention, your why. And you can, have some conversations with people, really start to understand and get clear, get some feedback, get some help, and work towards any mindset or limiting beliefs. So that's huge. And that's often why people need a coach, is because you have limiting beliefs and thoughts that you have to move through. Heck, every day I'm like, oh, where did that thought come from? And how can I move through that? And that's just a really huge and crucial piece of it. And circling it back to your why of what your dreams are is really important. And number three, you got to make a plan. You've got to make a plan and you've got to take action, which is something that holds a lot of people back. You might have fear around that. So then you have to circle back to step two. So there's a lot in these steps. It's not just this easy little plan. It might seem simple, but it's not always easy. But when you kind of get in the habit of moving through the steps and circling back, and then always taking some action, move yourself forward. It does get easier as time goes on. And then you'll start
I really
to achieve
love
some
that.
goals.
Because I think that really sometimes, especially in this last year, if there's anything we've learned that we have to stop doing and just be. And I have to say that I think a lot of times when you just be, you do see that. And one of the things I really love about these steps is, like what you said, they do apply to a lot of things. And, in our daily lives and in our business, we do have to make decisions, right? And so being able to go through a process that you can make decisions, while it may not be easy, like you said, the more you do it, the easier it will get. And I believe that at times when this happens, it can also help you to understand triggers, right? What are some things that trigger us in those self-limiting beliefs that we have and those obstacles that get in our way. But really, before we go there, and I do want to go there because I think that is really, really important in this confidence piece, I do kind of want to actually talk about how this vision for you and Ryan and how your story segued into inspiring you to write a book. So, and a book about couples too. So I really love that. So can you tell us a little bit about the book?
Yeah, no problem. I am super excited about the book. It comes out March 9th. The title is Confidence Mastery for Couples, Roadmap to a More Intimate Relationship. And I have poured my heart and soul into this book and authentically sharing our stories. So it is, every chapter, there's 14 chapters, is chock full of bite-sized stories. I don't tend to be a long-winded person, so they're bite-sized stories. And my goal is that people really see areas where it's relatable to them. I have read zillions of books, and I always feel like if I get one golden nugget, that's great. Well, I want you to come away with like 20, and I want this book to be a tool and a hand guide that you just, have on your shelf, and you're struggling with something and you open it up and you're like, oh yes, Melinda wrote a chapter on communication. I'm really struggling with my partner right now in regard to communication, and okay, I got a little bit of clarity and I can move forward. So that is my intention with the book. I really feel that, Ryan and I have been on this path. It has been a ton of mindset work, just above and beyond. And it's something that doesn't stop too every day. Like I already feel like I've got a second book like popping out of me in regards to couples. And we all go through these things and no one talks about it enough. And so I just want to open that door for discussion, for people to realize they're not alone, and to have some real relatable examples and stories that you can grasp onto and just have a sense of comfort and start having better conversations.
So here's what I love the most about what you just said. What I love, and I'm in marketing, and so I hone in on these things, right? So one of the things that you just said that I really love is, yes, it's a book, and here's all these nuggets you're going to share that you can apply. But what I really loved is, we all know that life changes every day, right? Different things happen, which means that this is a book that you can go back to over and over again. It's not like a one and done book, right? And that it appears that the way you set up the chapters, even that once you read it, like you don't even have to go back and read it in order. You can just open up the table of contents and say, oh, I'm struggling right now. I want to go back and read this communication chapter. I want to go back and read this chapter. So this isn't just a book you're going to want to read and then put, on in your library, right? This is a book that you're going to want to refer back to over and over again, like a guide, which I really love that. So that kind of makes the book almost priceless to me. So I'm excited for the book to come out. I think that is really great. And I know a little birdie told me, although I know you really can't go into a lot of detail here, that once the book is out, you are going to have, a course as well. And we'll probably have you back on the show another time when you get there so that we can kind of talk about that. But I love knowing that, guess what, guys, we're going to have this book. It's going to sort of be a guide too. You're going to be able to refer back to it. And should you want to, there will be a course in the future too. So I really love that. So I have to tell you, that was very well intentioned. And I don't think when people do books, they always think about that, right? They think about writing the book, but that's powerful, Melinda. And, you always lead with contributions. So I love that. You're so caring. So now let's talk about those obstacles. So we mentioned a little bit about those, limiting beliefs that we have, and it's not even just limiting beliefs, because I believe that when people have limiting beliefs, it also creates habits. And some of those habits are not so good, right? And some of those habits are actually really lead us to fear and making some decisions that get in our way. And maybe we need to retrain our brain a little bit. So can you talk a little bit about that? Because I think that can really stand in somebody's way.
Yeah, and you're so right. And where do I want to begin? I even had something happen to me a couple weeks ago that was a trigger, to use your word trigger that you said, which is such a powerful word. And I'm so glad more and more people are recognizing their triggers and starting to understand that. And it triggered me, and I had to go, why did I have that thought? And it circled back to, I had to think about it for a while. So I want people to understand that, sometimes you might have to think about it for an hour, a day, a week, but it took me about an hour, and I went, oh my gosh, I had that thought, which I didn't like. I did not like the thought I had because of a behavior from my mother. And when you start to recognize that, then you can start to make the change. And if I wouldn't have recognized it, to your call out about fear, it would have put me in a place of being fearful about not moving forward. So again, it kind of circles back to the tips of, taking some time to recognize your thoughts and your feelings, and then understanding the intentions around it, and then taking action. So in my place in regard to taking action was like, okay, I got to change this thought. I got to change this behavior and recognize it better next time so it doesn't creep up on me, right? So yeah, there's a lot to unpack in that, but it is something that I definitely work on daily. And I've encompassed a lot of stories about that in the book. One I can think of off the top of my head, not to be too much of a spoiler, is about an argument Ryan and I had. And then we started to unpack it, and ends up there were all these layers into the argument that went back to limiting beliefs and fear. So yeah, it just is part of our daily lives. And the more that we can talk about it and understand it, recognize it, and move forward, the stronger all of us will be.
I think that is really so true, because once you can recognize the trigger and then know how to quickly work and unpack it so that you can move forward, and sometimes you can do it yourself. I personally believe for everything that I've been through in my life, hiring someone to help you do it, and then they could teach you the skill set that you need so that you can do it. I know that is what worked for me. And one of the things I'll be vulnerable and share too, that I remember when I decided I was going to be a speaker. And I've been in marketing for 23 years, and I've only been a speaker for the past 10, because I didn't really want to be a speaker. And I couldn't figure out why. People would say, Patty, how come you're not speaking? When I didn't want to, and I couldn't figure it out. And then I realized that I remembered that when I was a kid, my parents called me Chatty Patty. And what would happen is every time we would go somewhere, or, we were around the dinner table or whatever, I can't even tell you if I had $1 for how many times my parents said to me, Patty, if you could just be quiet for 30 minutes, we'll give you $5. I never once got the $5, never once. But what I learned as I grew up is to be quiet and not use my voice. And so, nobody wants to hear that. And so sometimes, when I'm getting ready to do things, or I have a lot of people like to talk about squirrel, if people have, squirrel and they have that, I kind of feel like that really stands for brilliant idea syndrome. And I have it. And so when it does, sometimes I can still hear my mother's voice. I mean, I love her, but, sometimes I still hear that, and like, I have to shut her up. Like, I have to be like, I just have to shut that down and realize that that's not always true. But it's funny because literally we're talking, decades later, and my mom's passed away 10 years ago. So for me, really, she never did see me become that speaker. So that's unfortunate and sad. But it still comes up, right? You still have these triggers, and sometimes they hit you when you don't even see them, and you can spin. So really having somebody help you to recognize some of those things so that you can quickly recognize the trigger and don't spin, I think really can help someone a lot. And I think part of that is having that confidence, right? To be able to know that you can trust yourself, right? And that you can get back on track. So I would really love to talk a little bit about that, because you really say that you can teach people real life tools they can use, right? Because having the right confidence is going to help you in your life and in your business, right? So what are just a few of the things that you help people with? How do you serve when somebody does come to you? Like, what are some of the ways that you help people?
Yes. And I commend you for sharing that story, because I just want to say this really quick because it's so big and so important. When you have the confidence to share a story like that to other people, obviously not only it helps them, that's kind of the basic thing that everyone goes to, right? But it helps someone understand you better. So let's say somebody was, I'm just making this up, goes, oh, gosh, Patty talks a lot. Well, now they would understand, well, all the work you've had to do to be able to get back to a place of sharing your voice because you were quieted as a child. And I commend you for now being like, I'm going to share my voice. I am going to speak up. I am going to talk. So there's this whole dialogue there with people. And that's what I really want to get across to in the book is there's a whole dialogue that people need to have, that couples need to have, where you understand things that happened to you in your childhood or in your life that have created the fear and the belief. So I just kind of wanted to circle around and close the gap, because that is just what is really important in, getting to know people and building relationships, and not just taking things for like surface level. There's like a whole other like layer system in all of us that is really important.
You know what popped into my head when you said that? Mm-hmm. So I love that we just get to have this conversation.
Yeah, so I know I segued, but I want to commend you, and I want people to like do the math and have that aha moment. So go on, sorry.
So I think we're talking about confidence, and we're talking about confident conversations like your podcast. But another word popped into my head when you were thinking about that, not just me, but thinking about conversations you may have, and especially with your spouse or partner, is courageous, right? Sometimes it takes courage to share your story. Now that I've been a speaker for 10 years, it's so much easier for me now to share, but it wasn't in the beginning. And literally the first 18 months I was a speaker, I actually threw up every single time before I got on stage, before I worked through it. But really, it takes courage sometimes to trust someone enough to have a conversation. So being confident and standing in your truth to have that conversation, and realize you really can't control what that other person does. All you can control is what you do. So having the confidence and the courage to have a conversation that needs to be had, no matter who you're having it with, is always going to move you forward. And knowing how to position that and to step into that and lean into that, I think is key for success in business and in life.
Mm-hmm. And now you've segued perfectly into how I work with people. So thank you. That was fantastic, because that is exactly it. I have worked with coaches for years, and they put you in a box and you fill out all these forms and different quizzes and tests. And I believe that in order to build your confidence and really change, it's all about the individual and having that trust with your coach to share those thoughts, to be like, hey, Melinda, I just had this thought and it feels kind of wonky. Like, can we talk and get through it? So that is how I approach coaching and working with others, is really just kind of more of this individual piece to really chip away at those thought processes, because that's what holds you back. And then also, it also goes into a whole level as well, that could be its own podcast, is your energy around that. So, when I had recognized that I had a wonky thought, my energy around what was going on wasn't good. So then that affected things too. Not only did I know that it just wasn't the right thought to have, but also the energy that was then permeating to others wasn't a good thing. So I think that, using some simple steps like I went over, but then also doing that deep internal work and having the confidence and understanding that the coach you work with, whoever that is, you can have a confidential, lots of C words there, right?
Right.
Confidential conversation, with courage, like you said, is just really important to start busting through that. And that is also, that's really how I got into all of this, was realizing that those conversations with Ryan was what helped move him forward and us as a couple and me, because I learned about myself at the same time. And I also changed myself. So all of those together ended up being what's moved us forward as a couple. But you have to recognize things and you have to do the internal work first.
I think so too. And one of the things, I have always worked with at least one coach, right? Sometimes I've had 2 or 3 coaches have coaches, right? Because we know how powerful that is. And one of the things that I remember early on was the trust that you really build with a coach, right? You get to have not just, now we're talking, you really get to have those confidential conversations as well.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the things that is so important about it, I feel, is yes, can you work through this stuff on your own? Yes, it will take you longer. But why I feel strongly myself about hiring a coach is because once you go into that and you start unpacking, it is easy to go into a spin, right? And then all of a sudden you can just go into this really ugly place. Really having somebody that you do have that courage and you trust them, knowing that they're going to help you unpack it. But at the end of the day, they're also going to help you shorten that curve to get back into that confident place that you need to be, so that you don't go off into this whole abyss of, sorrow or whatever the case may be, depending upon what it is. So really, it is super, super important. And I think that I really love that because I know for me that I can do that, right? And I think as women, we really can, right? You get started on this and then it's this and then it's that and all of a sudden. And so I have really learned that when I talk to my coach and being able to say, here's something that did kind of come up for me, and being able to unpack that, realize that sometimes one thing can actually affect you in many areas and stuff. And so I just think we live in a world right now where, because we are so much more visible, like being more visible, how much better can you feel about that if you're more confident? Right. So, that is just so important. So I feel like from a coaching point of view, find somebody who's been through stuff themselves, so they really get you, and that you can trust and have that courage to really do it, because getting confidence about what you do and how you show up is going to help you in every area of your life. So do you have a specific, we all have a passion, right? We all have a passion about certain things, right? I have 6 daughters and I come from a family of girls. And so for me, I love women. I love women, and I'm very passionate about helping women or men who focus on women, right? So really that is something near and dear to me. I'm very passionate about it. Is there a group or a niche or whatever the word we want to use that you really have a passion for working with? I know when I was introducing you, we talked about women a lot. So is there something that, yes, you can work with, because it did say you were multi-passionate. I love that. Multi-passionate success coach. I love that. So really, I know for me, sometimes when I talk to people, the hair raises on my arms and I'm like, oh my gosh, I really want to work with them. What are some things that when you hear, or maybe some traits that people embody that you just love and are passionate about working with them?
Mm-hmm. Yes. Obviously women, but my passion now that my husband has, how do I put this? If you listen to our podcast, you'll know I kind of share ideas with him. And if he doesn't say no, it's a go. So that's kind of how we roll as a team. But, now that he's really understands a lot about the work that we've done and the business also that we've built, which is super important. It goes hand in hand. I would say that I have a strong passion about helping couples, and especially couples that are in business together or wish to work together, because it is not always easy. And, people are amazed that our computers are next to each other. Like literally his computer's right here. And, they're like, how do you guys do that? It's really tough. My husband and I only get along on vacation. I hear that all the time. And I don't believe that has to be your story. I believe that you can work on things. And yes, the book is going to be a great tool for people, but also, coaching and helping, whether it's from me or somebody else, just getting that help if that is your passion and your desire and your vision for the future, to work with your partner on developing a business, having a business, or, even just some life struggles you may have. Sometimes that all goes hand in hand, even if you have separate jobs. So I would say, yes, women, number one, obviously, because that's where I am in my lane, but also helping couples that wish to move forward in business or in life.
I love that. So here's what I want to know, Melinda. What I want to know is you have this amazing business and you have this amazing vision, and, your husband is part of that vision, and you have this real heart to serve. And I love that. But what do you love most about your business today? Like where you are today, what do you love the most about your business?
Oh, wow. That's a great question. And no one's ever asked me that. I would say I am extremely proud that we created it from scratch, kind of against what anyone thought. And I think that shows a lot of perseverance, a lot of hard work mentally, and, doing the work and learning, and, just the tenacity to stick it out. And that's what I hope to, not even hope, I do, in all my content that I share and in coaching, I want to get that across to people that, sometimes, cut out the noise. If we would have listened to other people when we moved down here, we were in our mid-30s, we have college educations, we both had extremely good jobs living up north, and we were definitely not the normal of moving to the Keys. Most people that move to the Keys are either younger or older and retired, and we were in our mid-30s, and people thought we weren't going to make it. And when Ryan, was saying, oh, I'm going to be a captain and have my own charter business, people laughed at us. Laughed. And that was a lot of mental work to push through that, let alone do what he's done in regard to not only having a charter business where he's booked every day, but also have a huge community with a ginormous podcast. So yeah, I would say I'm very proud of that. And that's what I really love helping others with too, is getting to that point where they know that they can do it too. We all have the power within us to build that confidence and keep going. And that, and one step leads to another. And as you keep going, your confidence keeps building. And before you know it, the sky's the limit. And that's where I'm at.
I love that. You've just shared so much from your heart and just really shared your brilliance. And I love that and appreciate it so much. So Melinda, how can people connect with you?
Oh my gosh, I would love for people to connect with me. That's my favorite thing. I get so excited. My website, this is just the easiest thing, just keeping it simple. My website is melindavanfleet.com. So just go to that website. You'll see connect buttons. You'll see my email. You'll see a podcast. You'll see all the stuff. So yes, definitely reach out. I'd love to hear from you.
Perfect. And I actually know as well that on your website, you're super generous there, and you have some gifts there for people too, that they can just grab those gifts right there, which is really wonderful. We will have the link to her website and to those gifts as well right here in the podcast. So you'll be able to get that information and grab those gifts, which is really wonderful. This is the portion of the show though, where I really call this the hashtag OpenMic, my version of social karaoke, where I turn the mic over to my guest and really ask them the thing that you guys want to know, right? This is the Marketing, Media, and Money show, What is the number one marketing strategy you could share with us, Melinda?
So in one sentence, drum roll, recognize where you are and create your plan. That would be my biggest tip. If you could take away anything and remember that, recognize where you are and create your plan.
Wow, that is just so powerful, right? Sometimes you can say all these things, they're powerful, and in one sentence, you can just really, knock it out there. So I want to ask you one last question. I don't usually ask another question after you give us your tip, but a question occurred to me that I think would be a really good question as we're wrapping up. So briefly, what would be, if you could only give one piece of advice to someone who's considering working with their husband or, embracing doing something as a couple, if you could just briefly give them one piece of advice, what would that be?
The first thing that came to mind was recognizing where the change needs to come from. And I do open my book in that's a section is change. So if you have some struggles, because we all do, is look internally first for change before you try to change the other person. And this goes with everything, but in general, it's really important as you're working together on your business to recognize you might have some things too that need to change. It's not just the other person.
Oh,
and once you can get to that level, it's good.
I love that. Thank you so much for being here with us today, Melinda. I appreciate it so much. I appreciate you sharing your zone of genius, so to speak. I encourage everyone to reach out to her, check out her book as soon as it launches, and
March
stay
9th.
tuned for more information. I would really love it. Thank you so much, Melinda.
Thank you, Patty. This was awesome. Thank you. I appreciate you so much. Thank you.
And thank you. And thank you to our audience for joining us today on the Marketing, Media, Money podcast. And if you enjoyed today's episode, and I'm sure you did, please like, subscribe, and review the podcast on your favorite listening platform. If you don't know how to leave a review, a lot of times people have asked me that. I just recently added to the website, pattyfarmer.com, added to our website a little video on how to leave a review. So in case you've always wondered and thought, I don't know how to do it. Now we're going to show you in a little video exactly how to do it. But we come bearing gifts, so make sure that our sister publication, our Marketing, Media, and Money magazine, of which, drumroll please, that Melinda is one of our columnists for 2021, and I'm really excited. So don't think that once you heard from her today on the podcast, it's the last time you're going to hear from her, because you're going to get a lot of great content that she's sharing in our magazine as well. So what you would like to do is just grab your free lifetime subscription to the Marketing, Media, Money magazine, where our industry experts and global influencers like Melinda generously share their knowledge, strategies, and resources on what's working now, not 5 years ago, to help you scale your business. So just go to marketingmediamoney.com, grab your subscription right there. Make sure you connect with Melinda. Make sure you watch out for her book, connect with her on social media, go grab her gifts, and make it a great day.
Thank you for joining us today on the Marketing, Media, and Money podcast. To shorten your learning curve even more, make sure to grab your free copy of the Marketing, Media, and Money magazine at www.marketingmediamoney.com. I promise your business will thank you.